What's up guys, welcome to Monchkinz Gaming, where we take your gaming to the next level. This is Monchkinz logging in to bring you another Dissidia Final Fantasy Opera Omnia video, and welcome back to another video guide. In today's video, we are going to take a look at the Transcendence Stage 4 fight. In this video, we are going to be taking a look at the left and right Crucible, as well as the middle Reckoning stage. Now, before we do actually start the video, I just want to let you guys know that I've changed the format when it comes to my Transcendence video guides. Hopefully this is a little bit more informative and a little bit easier for you to navigate around it. Especially if you are stuck with one specific fight, I intend to give you guys more tips and stuff like that on these videos from now on. And with that out of the way, leave a like and subscribe if you did enjoy this video or find it informative at all. It does help the channel guys, and I really do appreciate it. And without further ado, let's start this video. Alright guys, so let's start this video off with the left Crucible. So let's start with the Lufenia orb and the fight itself. Now, this starts at the start of the battle and will not disappear. You will get 8 Lufenia orb counters per debuff removed by the player. Now, the boss itself does apply a debuff, which is a poison HP debuff. However, I do find it a little bit inconsistent at times, so the mini flans are the best way to get these debuffs. They have a recast ability which applies these debuffs, and as well as actually do an HP attack on that recast ability as well. The boss can also change colors depending on if you don't actually break it when you kill the little flans. So the mini flans, basically when they die, the boss will get a massive brave gain, and then if you don't break it, basically it will change its color and therefore changing its weakness. You also need a white crystal unit to get a perfect score or mission score in this particular fight. Alright guys, now let's move on how you're gonna deal with this fight. First of all, be patient. This is probably the most annoying Transcendence fight, at least in my opinion. Probably worse than the first left Crucible fight, and when we first got the Transcendence stages. Yeah, I'll put this on the top. There are some inconsistencies with this fight when it comes to getting the debuffs. Sometimes you get it quite often, and sometimes you don't. It's more the boss more than the mini flans than anything else, especially if you are using a character that can actually block debuffs, or a chance, or quote unquote chance to block a debuff. So I would highly suggest don't bring those characters along and just get debuffed. And the best thing to do is, if you are feeling like you're getting inconsistent debuffs, is if you actually get the HP poison debuff from the boss, just try and keep it until you know that you can actually, the Lufenia orb counters is starting to drop down, or at least when it is at 12, so you can get 8 maximum Lufenia orb counters with removing that debuff. Now, I cannot recommend Yuna enough for this stage because she meets the orb requirement, as well as heal from all the HP damage that you are going to be taking from the recast ability. And again, I just want to reiterate that do not bring characters that can block debuffs. It's not going to work out very well. Alright guys, now let's move on to the right Crucible, which is the second Lufenia fight in this Transcendence stage. The Lufenia orb starts when the boss reaches less than 80% of their HP. You get 2 Lufenia orb counters when the boss takes a range brave damage. Now, the fight itself is pretty ordinary. We've dealt with this this boss so many times. Basically, when the tail is raised, basically do expect a followed up concentration kind of thing when it gets a massive brave gain, and it will have a blue aura. Basically, this will raise its defense as well. And while the boss is in this blue aura mode, it will also be immune to instant breaks. So the only way for you to actually break them is to actually try and break them. Now the boss will also debuff the entire party when they reach less than 80 and 50% of their HP. So how are you going to deal with this fight? Now, unfortunately, I'm here to tell you that you will really need some range brave attackers in this particular fight. Only because the max orb is only 8, and it's going to be hard to manage that with just call abilities. So I would really highly suggest a character that can actually do AoE, range brave attacks like Yuffie, and if you can use a call ability like Cloud can actually work as well as a call ability with his LD, is actually a pretty good character to bring here as well. Now, the biggest thing here is do not bring any melee characters because they get countered and they die instantly. You do not want to bring a melee character in this fight. Now, Setzer, I think, is probably the MVP in this particular fight because he can destroy the massive brave gains that the boss gets with his buff if for some reason you missed out on the freeze. So Setzer can deal with the massive brave gain either with his freeze or with the buffs that he provides, and then you can basically break the boss. Alright guys, let's finally move on to the Reckoning fight. The first wave, which is the White Killing, the Lufenia orbs will start at the start of the battle and will disappear when their HP is less than 80%, and will reappear once again when their HP is less than 50%. You get 2 Lufenia orb counters when the total player buff is 12 or more. Now, the White Killing is quite a dangerous boss, particularly if it has the Storm Calling buff. Now, what this buff does is basically it follows up its attack. So as much as possible, if you see this, try not to get broken. It is probably the best way to deal with this. We'll be going through how to deal with these later down in this video as well, but this is a very dangerous ability, especially if you see that all attack. Now, the other thing that you need to worry about here is if you act more than 10 times in a row. Basically, they will have a super buff, which your brave damage and HP damage will be just doing once. They also buff their stats when they're less than 80% and less than 50% of their HP. Alright guys, now let's move on to Wave 2. The Wave 2 is where we fight the Grand Rock bosses. Now, the Lufenia orb will start at the start of the battle and will reappear when their HP is less than 60%. This does disappear at less than 80 and 40% of their HP. You get 2 Lufenia orb counters when the boss takes a critical damage. Now, as for the fight itself, the bosses do get massive brave gains when their HP falls less than 80, 50, and 30% of their HP. You can delay the entire party as well with Tyrant Roar, and they can also delay a single target with up to 3 turns of delay. They also have an HP attack called Rock Press, which has a splash damage, and they also get a Brave Shield when their HP falls below 60%. Now, as with the White Killing, they also have that 10-turn super buff, so having multiple turns, up to 10 turns, is not going to do you good. Now, again, the only way to deal with this is just to let them have a turn. Now, the last thing I put here is the fact that they can actually heal themselves with Curaga. Unfortunately, I don't really see this. This is an info in DissidiaInfo.com that I found. I didn't actually know they can heal themselves. I know they kind of have a buff, but I didn't realize that they were healing themselves. So just take this with a little bit of grain of salt, as the Toneberry Troop in their website as well mentioned that it is unlikely that they will heal themselves. It's just one of those things that we are not really sure of if they actually do this or not. Alright guys, now let's talk about how you're going to deal with this fight. Honestly, the biggest MVP is going to be Setzer. Now, Wave 1, Basically, do not get broken, especially when the storm calling buff is active. I already mentioned this, but freeze and Yuffie's EX to avoid the boss from getting more brave is actually a really good way to deal with this. In this video, you guys might see that I actually use like 2 freeze in if I actually put the video here. I actually use 2 of my freeze in the white killing stage and just use 1 freeze on the second wave. But I think that is a better way to do it, because I save a lot of my burst, my burst and my summon on the second wave, so I ended up using 2 freezes in the first wave. Now on wave 2, once again, freeze and Yuffie's EX to avoid the brave gain. I mean, there's really not much I can tell you, because this is the best way to deal with them. You can also block the boss with Yuffie's EX as well. So I think the something that you can take away from this is to bring either Setzer or Yuffie in this fight. I would probably go more with Setzer, because he can, you know, really buff the entire party as well. You only do get like 3 freezes though, whereas with Yuffie you can keep refreshing her EX ability, so it's really going to be up to you. You can bring both of them if you really want to, but at the end of the day, I think you need some healers as well. So because I believe you can only have like a 3000 HP requirement on this one or something like that. I can't remember on top of my head, but it's pretty small, so I do suggest bringing a healer along. Alright guys, now let's talk about the characters to bring. Now this is going to be just a few suggested characters on my part. For the most part, these are the characters that probably will help you clearing these fights. Now on the left, Crucible, like I mentioned, you need a white crystal character. Yuna, Pinello are probably the best ones to bring. I would really suggest Yuna, because she has more cleansing capabilities more than Pinello. Pinello is actually a good call character to bring on a character that cannot cleanse. Theodore is another character that I brought and really helped out when it comes to cleansing debuffs. He can also cleanse his own debuffs, you know, if he gets the HP poison with his ability too. Both Veer and Yuffie obviously really good as well as Setzer. Tifa is actually a great character to bring here for single target damage. You don't have to worry about killing those mini flans if you have Tifa just concentrating on the boss. Vaughn is also the same thing. You can actually use his ability 1 instead of his ability 2 if you really want to just concentrate on the boss. Now as for the right Crucible, Setzer, Yuffie, and Barret, Arnea, Vaughn, and Aerith are the characters to bring along. Now I didn't mention this in the earlier video, regarding you actually need a red crystal character. I actually forgot that. I probably will add that in there, but probably won't mention it. But you do need a red crystal unit in that fight, so you know Yuffie is probably the best one to bring along. Again, you can bring Vaughn as well, as he is a red character. As for the Reckoning stage, now this is gonna be hard because it really depends on who you bring along, but ideally you should have Setzer there or Yuffie. And you know, if you have Yuna as well, Yuna can fill in basically the orb requirement for the white killing stage, as she buffs the entire team with quite a lot of buffs actually, and you should get more than 12 buffs, including all the other buffs that your other characters bring along. So a really nice character to bring. And of course Vaughn with his insane amount of damage. You can probably add in Tifa here as well. Alright guys, so we're finally at the end of this video, and of course I'll give you guys my final thoughts regarding these 4th stage of Transcendence. Honestly, the left Crucible is probably the most annoying fight that I ever had to do, probably because I just don't have the patience. But let me know which one of the 3 fights is more annoying to you. But for me personally, it has to be the left Crucible. I actually spent quite a lot of time trying to clear that fight again. I remember having difficulty in the JP version of the game regarding that fight, and honestly I had Tifa available on the JP version. Unfortunately, I already used Tifa earlier on my global account, so there you go. I had to use Vaughn in there, but oh man, just I never thought I had to do it again. But I mean, I knew I had to do it again in the global version, but you know, I just didn't want to do it again. It's an annoying fight, and that's that. Overall though, the other fights themselves weren't all that difficult in a way. The right Crucible probably is, I would say it's more in the balancing with the actual you know, the actual Lufenia orb, because you need range characters to keep it up, and the maximum amount being only 8 can be very hard to manage. So I think if anything, it's the management in the right Crucible and in the reckoning stage. I think I would say the first wave can be a little bit more dangerous than the second stage, only because I kind of, you know, saved up my burst and my summon on the 42nd wave as well. So I mean, overall I think it's a quite decent fight, and I think it can be pretty challenging as well, especially if you haven't been pulling for, you know, if you haven't pulled for Setzer or maybe even Yuffie to a lesser extent, and especially if you haven't been pulling for Yuna, which I think is probably the best character on the left Crucible to deal with all the debuffs. Of course, you can still deal with it with some other way with Balthier and of course Yuffie as well, but I think Yuna, because she can heal and deal with the Lufenia orb, is a 2-in-1 package, and that really makes her shine in that fight. So overall, I think it's a decent fight. Can be annoying as well. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Let me know your teams and your strategies down there, and I do apologize that this video is late. I was supposed to work on this yesterday, but I really had to just take a break because I ended up working in the COVID ward, and it was kind of like very busy. I just didn't have the energy after, you know, playing with my wife in Final Fantasy 14, which I've recently restarted for about 3 weeks now, 2 weeks. Made a new character, and playing with her has been very enjoyable as well. So anyway guys, that is it for this video. Please do remember to click like and subscribe if you haven't already. It does help the channel, and hopefully you share this video as well to other fellow Dffoo players who are struggling to beat these Lufenia stages, and hopefully this video can help them. And check out my other videos as well. I have quite a few Lufenia guides now out, and hopefully they can help you as well. And yeah, follow me on Twitter and on Facebook at Monchkinz Gaming. This is Monchkinz logging off. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next level.